This is episode 24 of the Life in Norway show. Regular followers of Life in Norway will know that back in January, I took my first journey on Norway's iconic Hurtigruten. The company runs expedition ships all over the world, but are most famous for their coastal ferry service that links 34 Norwegian communities between Bergen and Kirkenes. On that same service, Hurtigruten offers 12-day round-trip cruise packages for those people, like me, wanting to get up close and personal with the Norwegian coastline. During my 12-day trip on the MS Vesterålen, one of the older ships in the fleet, I managed to speak to many of the crew that keep the ship working. On this episode, you'll get a behind-the-scenes insight into one of Norway's most iconic brands by hearing from the chief officer, the stores manager, the hotel manager, plus 2 people who provide essential services to the Hurtigruten operation. You can find out more about the things we talk about on today's show, including lots of photographs from the ship, on the show notes page. Simply head on over to lifeinnorway.net/podcast and look for episode 24. Happy listening. So I am now standing on the bridge of the MS Vesterålen, something that not many people get to do, and I have the Chief Officer, Anders Lingard, to thank for that. So thank you very much for the invite, sir.
You're very welcome.
Can you describe some of the computers, the screens, the displays that we're seeing right now, and how you operate them and how you run the ship from here?
Yeah. From the bridge we are running and the ship, steering the ship, and on these screens that you are seeing in front of us, we have, first of all, most important equipment we have is the radar. The radar shows the area around the ship, that it's clear water, no obstructions, things to hit. And on the side of the radar we have electronic sea charts, which we are marked with a GPS position all the time where we are sailing. That shows us the route from port to port.
This looks fairly straightforward to navigate through the open sea. So how do things differ when we're starting to approach a port? What does that process look like?
Yeah, when we start to approach port, we start up bow thrusters. Yeah, we make sure that able seamen are in position for mooring. We reduce speeds, and then we enter the port with slow speed and go alongside pier and mooring. Yeah.
And some of these stops, I mean, we're talking, is it 34 along the coast? Yep, 34. Some of them are, pretty large, Bergen, Trondheim, and then others, especially some of the ones we've seen today, like Vardø and Meham and a few others, especially in the north, are really very small. So are there any specific challenges with those small ports, and how do you deal with that?
Oh, yes. We have many small ports that we are visiting, especially up here on Finnmark, the northeast part of Norway. Yeah, as long as the weather is good, it's no problem. We go inside and visit and go out again. The challenge can be when the weather is bad, and we can struggle a lot to come inside, but we are always trying to do our best to come inside these small ports, because Hurtigruten is so important for these small ports. It's long distance to the bigger city. We have cargo, we have supplies, we have medicines, we have everything that these small villages need they bring with the Hurtigruten. So the most important ports that we have along the coast is these small ports, especially north of Norway.
Interesting. You mentioned bad weather, and we experienced some what a lot of passengers who are taking the boat for the first time, including myself, perceived as quite bad storms for the first couple of nights of the voyage. But as I understand it, it's pretty normal for this time of year. So what happens on the bridge when there's a storm and the boat starts to rock? Is there anything different that you have to do under those kind of conditions?
No, and it's quite normal in wintertime in Norway that a storm hit us. And no, we do our duty on the bridge. We are sailing from port to port. We go outside the port, see if the weather is okay. If the weather is not okay, we sail to the next port. And so it's not so much extra job for us on the bridge. We are doing the same. We are sailing.
Couple more questions, if that's okay. Certainly don't want to be taking you away from your duties for very much longer. I understand you used to work on the MS Fram, which is one of the polar exploration ships in the Hurtigruten. Can you tell us what that was like and how it differed from the Norwegian coastal route?
Oh, explorer ships are beautiful sailing in, for me, different waters from the coast of Norway. It's exotic to see penguins. It's on the north side. It's exotic to spot polar bears and everything. But for a passenger sailing with Hurtigruten along the coast of Norway, or he is sailing with his explorer ship Fram in Antarctica or in Arctica, I think it will be mostly the same. The coast of Norway is Arctic. It's for a passengers coming from the middle of Europe or from a land with no mountains, and suddenly come and sail under 1,000 meter high mountains covered with snow in the winter, with darkness and northern lights. That's exotic, that too. For me, I live in this area the whole year, so for me to see I see every morning when I wake up, I see 1,000 meter high mountains. If I go out in the night, I see the northern light. For me, it's every day, but for a passengers that is coming for the first time, the coast of Norway is exotic. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great answer. One more question, and that I think my listeners will be really interested to hear from somebody who sails so often around the coast of Norway. What's your favourite place in Norway?
My favourite place in Norway? Yeah, when the weather is nice, it's at home. But favourite area in Norway, I will say, is Lofoten, Rafsundet, with nice weather in Rafsundet, Trollfjorden, and along the coast of Lofoten. That's spectacular.
I agree 100%. Where is home, by the way?
Home is 10 kilometers from Stokmarknes.
Okay, all right. The home of Hurtigruten. So the right place to live for a chief officer.
Exactly.
Anders, tusen takk.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Happy sailing.
Thank you. Have a nice voyage.
So we're now sailing from Stamsund to Svolvær on the Lofoten Islands. It's one of the prettiest stretches in all of Norway, but it's pitch black outside at the moment, so we are all on the boat eagerly awaiting arrival at Svolvær. So in the meantime, I've been lucky enough to interrupt the duties of Stig Veda, who is the store manager here on the MS Vesterålen for this voyage from Bergen to Kirkenes and back to Bergen again. Stig, thanks so much for taking some time out of your busy day.
Well, thank you for talking to me.
No problem at all. So you're the store manager here on the Vesterålen. What does that mean?
Well, it mainly means that I'm responsible for all the purchases on board and make sure we have everything we need to provide food and toilet paper for the guests.
So does that mean you're the man responsible for keeping the fridges stocked with beer?
Of course.
Then I shake you by the hand, sir. Thank you very much. So this, it sounds maybe to a lot of people like an easy job, but I can see from my experience so far with, a port of call every few hours,
with bad weather that we've experienced. I mean, we've called every port so far, but some of the ships skip ports when the weather is bad enough. So how does that affect your job? And are there any other challenges that affect you on a day-to-day basis?
Of course, there's always problematic if we skip ports, because we get fresh food in almost every port we visit. And if we don't stay in the port and get our food, I have to get it on other ways, and I have to either make other ships bring it for me, or I have to rent lorries to drive it to another port for me. And of course, it will take a lot of man hours to get what I actually want and need to bring the boats around.
You mentioned food, so you're then the person responsible for ordering the food that the chef tells you he or she needs on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, that's correct.
A lot of the food on the menu is very localized. It's something that Hurtigruten as a company really push. So if we're sailing into a particular town, the next day on the menu, you're going to have berries in the dessert from that town or something like that, as a made-up example. What sort of pressure does that put on your job?
Well, we have a lot of local producers who provides us with everything from fish and cheeses, very locally produced food, and very small companies. And of course, we have not so many issues around it, except from when the weather is so bad that we can't get our merchandise. But mainly it's going very well, and we are very proud of the food that we can bring. And together with the head chef, communication is very good.
Excellent stuff. Well, I look forward to the food for the next, I think I've got another 7 or 8 days left on this voyage. So hopefully, if you do your job well, then I'll eat well. One thing I'm fascinated by, I learned last night that the shift pattern for most of the staff on the boats is 22 days on and 22 days off. And so that means essentially 2 full voyages on and then 2 full voyages back at home. 22 days working is a lot of time to work, but it's also a lot of time to spend away from home, away from family, and with the people you work with on a boat. So what is it like to live here on the Vesterålen or on a Hurtigruten ship in general?
Well, for me, I can only talk for myself, but I think all my colleagues will say the same if you ask. It's actually a very, very perfect situation, because all your colleagues is like a second family. And we take care of each other. We are very good friends. And for many of us, like myself, we are actually more together with our Hurtigruten family than we are together with our born family at shore.
It sounds like you really enjoy this life, this job. You see yourself being here in another 10, 20 years?
Hopefully I will be in Hurtigruten until I retire, because I really like it here. I like the people, and the company is always heading forwards, doing new stuff. It's interesting, and it's very nice to be around an employer that really wants to take it to the next level and be a part of that.
Good stuff, Stig. Thank you very much. Just before you go, I'd like to get maybe a tip from you on one of the lesser known ports that you find particularly interesting, maybe that tourists don't know about or maybe miss. Is there anything I should look out for in the days to come?
Well, that's actually a very tricky question, because the next port we are getting to, I believe, is, in my eyes, the most beautiful of them all. Svolvær, it's amazing, but What can I say? I think
well, it's fair to say that I am a fan of Svolvær, so I'm happy to accept that as an answer. A lot of people won't know anything about it. And actually, we are pulling into Svolvær in less than half an hour, and I have a brewery tour booked, so I had better go off and get ready. But Stig, thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure.
I mentioned at the top of the show I'd be speaking to two people who don't work for Hurtigruten, but are still a critical part of the operation. First of all, we hear from Per Anders from Norlines, a company that oversees a lot of the cargo operation in ports up and down the country. We then speak to Berga, one of the many tour guides who lead groups of people from the ships to points of interest ashore. We spoke outside Trondenes Church near Harstad, and I've included this short clip just so you can hear how passionate he is about his work.
Yeah, my name is Per Anders Brattjær. I work for the company Norlines International, which is owned by Samskip. We're a Norwegian-based and Dutch-owned company. We own and operate the cargo capacity on all 11 Hurtigruten vessels. We own and operate all the terminals from Bergen to Kirkenes. And in addition, we also own and operate a land haulage system between eastern Norway and northern Norway. And we also operate 8 more terminals from Bergen down to Oslo and Fredrikstad.
Okay, we're here this morning, well, I'm here at least for 6 hours on the MS Vesterålen, which we can see outside the window right now. What is happening today in these 6 hours from the cargo perspective?
This morning we started with discharging pallets and cars from the Vesterålen into our terminal in Trondheim. In the terminal we've been working since 5 o'clock this morning. And we do have a lot of cargo to be reloaded back onto the ship. There's a lot of cars standing in Trondheim awaiting shipments up north. This is early January. We have had a lot of storms along the coast and cancelled vessels. So there's a lot of cargo now remaining on the terminal. And we had an operational meeting with the crew this morning, trying to make priorities to what kind of bookings that we are actually going to load on the ship today. So a little bit cargo will be left over for tomorrow as well.
Okay, so we've touched on one of the challenges there, the weather. And, I'm arriving here in Trondheim after 24 hours of storms. So I can appreciate that the weather, especially at this time of the year, we're recording in January, is a big challenge. But what are some of the other challenges in the cargo side of working with Hurtigruten?
Well, again, the weather is a challenge. Today we have a lot of snow and icy conditions on the quay side. That's slowing down the speed on the forklifts driving back and forth on the terminal. We do have to take it easy and make stops to let the passengers pass here. And in addition, it's a matter of getting the pallets quickly from the ship and into the terminal so that it's not exposed to wet snow.
Okay, so this is a very complex operation. Every day, a new ship coming in with different capacity. You don't know exactly when some of the ships are going to arrive. If there's bad weather, the cargo mix is different every day. Presumably, then you have some super fancy software that manages all this for you at the touch of a button.
Unfortunately, Hurtigruten and the cargo mix in these 34 ports, it's so complex that it's not yet been built an IT system that can handle all these varieties and 34 ports and 11 different ships with each with their specific and unique and variable cargo capacity. So we have to do it manually. It's all based on Excel. We are fully dependent on having a brilliant dialogue with each and every vessel and each and every terminal. So it's a lot of information going back and forth every day.
Do you enjoy your job?
It's unique in a global perspective, so absolutely. We love our job.
And have you actually taken the full voyage from Bergen to Kirkenes and back to Bergen yourself?
I have never taken a full round trip on one vessel. I have traveled with all vessels. I have visited all terminals. So, we've done the full trip, but not in one trip.
Great stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'm now here at Trondenes Church. It's a chilly Sunday morning, and I'm with Berger Larsen, who is our multilingual tour guide. Berger, thanks for taking a minute or so to chat with me. Tell us a little about the church.
Yeah, so this beautiful that you see situated geographically, it's situated here because here was the site of the Vikings, where the main head Vikings of the northern Norway was living here at Trondenes. Geographically a central area for the sailing, the ships passing around here, and also short way to fish and food and so on. So the first that came here was a hov, a worship place for the old gods, Odin and Thor and things. And then when Christianity came here, they took down this hov and put a little wooden church in the same place. That was, we think, around 1050. Catholicism came mostly from Scotland, Ireland here. And then 100 years later, this little wooden church was small and old or something. It was decided to build a new church here, a stone church. That is the one we see now. It was started the work with this about 1150. And a fortified church, that is very special. So it is thick walls and watchtowers towards the seaside, and the stone fence around the church was about 5 meters high until mid-1700s, because from 1250 and 200 years forward here, there came attacks here from east, from the Russian side. People needed places to come together for defense, and therefore like a fortified church, very special. You can still see the fundaments of the watchtowers by the seaside there.
That is fascinating, and it is a truly unique building. I don't think I've seen anything like it elsewhere in Norway. If you are listening to this, you can check out some pictures in the show notes. Although it's a very cold day right now, we are actually standing in the neighbouring museum, so we're warming up a bit. And I've just taken a quick look around the exhibition upstairs, which is to do with Harstad and what happened here during World War II. Is there anything you could tell us just about what went on here at the site of the church?
Well, I can tell that you find a bit on the ridge, on the little mountain behind the church, or in the northern direction from the church, not far away, you find the 4 biggest land-based cannons in the world. We call them the Adolf cannons there, and they were built by the Germans in the last World War here when they occupied Norway. You know, Germany, when they occupied Norway here, from 1940 to 45, they moved almost all the fleet of Germany to the Norwegian coast and made about all naval operations in the North Atlantic out from the Norwegian coast. Then they had to protect the coast here with coast artillery. A big, large build-up all the way along the coast, but mostly in this region here, because it was so important for the Germans to protect the harbor in Narvik. Narvik Harbor, not far from here. Through Narvik Harbor, they were transporting iron ore from the mines in Kiruna on the Swedish side, through Narvik and to Germany. In the wartime, about 60% of the German steel production depending on this delivery. So strategic important Narvik Harbor, and therefore they built these monster cannons up here to hinder ships to come in and attack Narvik. So they cannons here still, they are all 4 there, and cannon number 1 of those is our museum cannon. You can come and see it when you come to Harstad. That is something to see. They were never used actually in the wartime. They were finished built when the war just before the war ended, and handed unused over to the Norwegians. And Norwegian coast artillery was using them some years after the war.
Berger was one of many excellent tour guides I met during the trip. Back on board, the last interview I have is with Steinar Olsen, who is the hotel manager on the MS Vesterålen.
I started in Hurtigruten in 2002, and that is 17 years ago. and this is my third ship. I have been on MS Vesterålen since late 2015.
So hotel manager is an interesting title, and I think people who have been listening to the podcast and have been following the diary understand that the Hurtigruten has dual purpose as a cargo freight ship and a local passenger service, as well as more of a cruise service. So how does your role as hotel manager fit in with the other duties of the Hurtigruten?
Yes, we have, as you said, a mix of passengers. We have the 50% maybe is the 11 days tourists, and like you, and the rest is local people that, yes, you may say they use us like a bus from port to port, some of them, especially in the winter time when the roads and the airports are closed. My job is to take care of all of these categories of people, and that's a job that I love my work. People say that this is the most beautiful voyage in the world. For me, it's the most beautiful working place.
So speaking of a ship like this as a working place, what is it like to essentially live on a ship for 22 days? As I understand, almost all the staff work a 22-day on, 22-day off shift. So that's a long time to be away from home and in a very enclosed space. So can you let us know what the day-to-day life is for someone who works on board?
Yes, it may be hard to stay on board for 22 days. When I started, I told my wife I will try Hurtigruten for 1 year. That's a stupid idea, Steinar, she told me, because we had two small kids, 5 and 7 years old. But she gave me permission to try for 1 year, and now I have been here for 17 years, and I'm still married to her. It's hard when the kids are small kids. It's a problem if they go to the hospital. You cannot do anything from where you are. It's you have to sacrifice something, and but now I see that. I did the right thing, because when I'm back home, I'm 100% back home, so I have a lot of quality time back there. For people who apply for a job on board here, I always tell them that you may have hard times on board, because it's you are never alone. People are two or two in the cabins, and it's like being in the army. Maybe it's you have to be strong-minded.
When you're interviewing people for a position, whether that's in the restaurant or the cleaners or some other aspect of the hotel part of the ship, what is it you're looking for most? Is it an aptitude with languages, or is it experience of the hotel or hospitality industry, or are you looking for people that you think have the right mindset to be in a working environment like this, and that may have had experience of an unusual working situation before?
It is maybe 50% skills and 50% mindset I'm looking for. I'm not sure, but something like that. I will never look for the best bartender in the world or the best waiter in the world, because then the ego will be too big, and I have no place for egos like that. I need them to be to have like a social intelligence, that they have antennas, that they take care of each other, take care of the passengers, and that is very, very important. The skills, of course, we need the skills, but they are not. It will not be the skills alone that gives you a place here on the ship where I work.
Good stuff. I understand that the Hurtigruten as a company is expanding a lot over the coming years, with new ships coming into the fleet and some new destinations potentially. What sort of jobs will you be looking for? What sort of person should consider a career with Hurtigruten?
People that loves other people. If you love people, and Hurtigruten is the right place for you. And now we need hundreds of new employees the next 2 years. So they should send a letter to Hurtigruten headquarters and said I'm ready. And on the Hurtigruten homepage, they can see what kind of qualifications you need and things like that. And this is for all departments: hotel department, engine department, and deck department. We need all kind of people. I believe that. I know for sure we have two ships. We are building 2 new ships now. They will go on in explorer traffic all over the world, and we have ship number 3 that will be finalized in Q1 in 2021. And I know for sure there are a lot of other ships coming in the pipeline there. So we are expanding.
Good stuff. Steinar, thank you so much, not just for this conversation, but for the last 12 days. It's been a pleasure to be a guest on your ship.
Thank you, David. I hope to see you again.